Folkschmer. I don't know that much about it. I'm from Norway. We grew up with this, but I don't know that much about Norse mythology. I mean, we learned about it in school. It's complicated. There's a lot of gods. There's so much going on there. So, yeah, but that's nice. I should have a necklace like that too.
I wear it every day. She's good luck.
Oh, anyways, I'm going to start now. Jamie, thank you so much for doing this. I've been seeing your face everywhere on YouTube, on TikTok. The first time I saw you was actually on TikTok. It came up in my feed with your crazy story. How are
Yeah.
you?
It sounds like we have slightly similar experiences. So, and it sounds like we travel in some similar circles. So I think we both have some common ground here.
So you just told me actually that one of the reasons why you are coming out talking about this now is because you saw my horrific interview with Blake Lively. What was your reaction when you saw that?
It, to be honest, it broke my heart because I have dealt with infertility and body issues. So, right from there. And for two, it broke my heart because you were giving her a compliment and she met you with hostility. And then my memory was jogged to, I didn't talk to her. And she was like, "You were the bad one who treated me like a fan." And it was just a triple threat trifecta memory for me at that point after your video.
Oh, so tell me about your experience. I think it's almost like 20 years ago, I think you said, right? So you were very young and inexperienced in the industry, and then you got a job as an intern.
Yeah. And I had turned 20 a week before. So I was young. And she was young, I believe, 17. And I always reserve the right to say people can change, to put that out there.
Yeah.
Uh, but I was pointed out and singled out as someone that treated her like a fan when, as someone who grew up on set and in this world, I knew you don't talk to talent. Didn't know who she was. This was her first movie. And I was singled out as you treated her like a fan. And then I was dressed down afterwards, which could have been a career ender because when you're an intern, you're the most dispensable person on the project. So it was this weird entry into the industry. And it was her levying all these complaints.
So what happened exactly? Was this the traveling sisterhood, traveling pants or something? That movie? And
Yes.
she wasn't even famous at that point, was she? Did you know who she was?
No. So I was an intern on a show that she was doing press for, and they were going to talk about Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. It was three of the four stars. Um, I believe it was Alexis Bledel who wasn't there. And my job was to hand out water bottles to whoever needed it on set that day. And so I didn't talk to her. I had no interaction with her. I walked by her in the green room and I went to set as I do. And then she was like, "Oh, that girl talk." Did I hang up?
No? No,
Okay.
you're there. Yeah.
That girl treated me like a fan. That girl made me uncomfortable. And the weird thing about it was I was wearing this sparkly top that day that I loved, and I was really like into my outfit. So I know exactly where I was and everything I was doing. And I'm like, wow, how could you misidentify sparkly top girl?
Interesting. Maybe she didn't like that you were sparkling.
There's been a few theories floated in my comment section about that, but I don't know. Like I to this day don't know.
So how did you feel after that? I mean, when you're 20 years old, I feel like I want to hug every 20-year-old girl out there because when you've been there, you know how insecure you are and how you feel, especially in a situation like that when you're like you know you are the like at the bottom of the hierarchy. And
And my dad had gotten me the job, so I thought he was going to get a phone call. I was
wow.
freaking out that they were going to call my dad.
So what happened after this? Did you leave or was that the end of the day that this happened?
It was the middle of the day. I had another show I had to go to. We had two studios. I had to go downtown, retrieve tape, and bring it back. I cried the entire subway because I was like, that's it. They're calling my dad. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done.
That's so horrible. And you didn't even speak to her. Nothing happened. You didn't even look at her.
I,
Did you
I
get
I stood against the wall so they could all get by. And if this didn't happen, my whole takeaway was that's the most beautiful girl I've ever seen.
Oh my
She
God.
was strikingly and still is strikingly beautiful in person. A very beautiful girl. So that
Yeah.
was my takeaway until that. And then I was like, what did I do?
So what happened after this? Did they call your dad or did anything come from it? Or was it just like a warning? Don't even look in a direction of a talent.
They used it as that for all the interns, and that wound up being the end of it. And then years later, I witnessed other interns down the line doing various, like, not cool things. And I remember being like, well, that's why interns aren't supposed to talk to talent. But at that point, I don't know if I had Nepo protection because of my dad or if it wound up just being a teachable moment. But I was the one that they, crucified.
But you worked a little bit in Hollywood after this, right?
Oh yeah, I worked for over 10 years in Hollywood. This was in New York. In Hollywood, I went on to have I think 12-year career.
What did you do when you were here?
I worked at CIA, I worked at Paradigm, I worked at Principato Young, which is now Artists First. I managed my daughter, who did a bunch of youth talent commercials. I was on Netflix with Carol Burnett. So I've done like
So
real.
you've been on the inside of this as well.
Oh yeah, and my sister did an indie and I did craft services just to help out. Like I've done literally anything you could do in Hollywood.
But then, so you've experienced these kind of things. Have you experienced something like this since then that people are behaving so badly?
Yes. So on the indie that I volunteered to do craft services on, they had a star who was bigger than the director. When that happens, the star sometimes pecks down and throws their weight around. Sometimes it helps the project. Maybe the star knows how a shot should go based on experience, but it it's a power imbalance for the director who's supposed to be the captain of the ship. And it really disrupts the flow of hierarchy and sets a situation of hierarchy.
Do you think that's what happened with Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively on this
That is
on
that is
It's
what I
With
think
Us?
happened.
Yeah, because you were talking, I saw in a TikTok video, you were talking about the hierarchy in Hollywood and how this works and how you think if this, what Blake Lively is alleging happened, is really unlikely that it happened because she was on the top of this hierarchy, right? Isn't that something you were talking about?
Yes, and her husband was present on set, and so that's just not usually a harassment environment. Like you're not going to harass someone whose husband's currently hovering. You're going to harass someone who's left alone, isolated, and weaker than you. You're not going to go for someone as big as Ryan Reynolds' wife or Blake, who has the filmography she has. So that didn't stack for me. And that was kind of where I drew some of my conclusions. And then Justin's paper trail of her refusal to meet with the intimacy coordinator. That's a big one. You keep
Yeah.
saying he's harassing you and taking liberties in intimate scenes, but the intimacy coordinator you're not meeting with. How do we make that add up?
Yeah, I thought as well, I mean, we both met her. We both seen how she can be. For me, it's hard to believe that she wouldn't tell someone off if she was uncomfortable. Uh,
And she has the financial leverage to walk. If she gets sued for breach of contract, okay, it's a couple $1,000s. You're so wealthy, pay for it if you're being harassed.
yeah, I also saw someone talk about this on TikTok. She was a SAG member herself. And she said if something like this happens on a set, SAG takes this very seriously and will shut down the movie until things are resolved. And nothing like this happened on this set, as we know that, you
And
know,
to speak from an agency perspective, I worked with a bunch of writers and directors. There were conflicts that would happen. And the first thing that would happen is the agent that I was working for would go to set.
okay. So that's what would happen in this scenario, you think, that the agent
Yes, if
would,
she's being harassed and saying I'm being harassed, her agent would be boots on the ground, monitoring the situation, possibly not even leaving for the duration of production. Her lawyers would have been there. It would have been manpower based on how high she is on the Hollywood food chain. And that, again, was not adding up to me.
from a PR perspective, I don't know if you have an opinion about this, but how do you think that Blake Lively should have solve this issue with her? Because what happened after her disastrous press tour and my interview coming out is that her reputation was really tarnished. How would you suggest that someone would go about that? What did she do the right thing by suing him? Did she trying to blame him for it? What do you think?
If you're asking me what would the PR strategy be prior to this, I have a different answer than what it would be in this moment today.
So prior to this, what would you suggest?
Prior to this, I wouldn't have shot the first shot. I would have actually let bygones be bygones. She opened up a mud fight, and now the water is muddy. I would have said, don't do this in the PR space. Today, I would say we have to mop up an oil spill, start donating to charities, and start doing videos of you doing civil service.
Hmm. Do you think she can come back after this? And do you think Ryan Reynolds can come back?
100% they will be fine. I think who's not going to be fine will be Baldoni unless he wins. If he doesn't win, he's probably not going to work again. If he does win, he's got a shot. CAA or UTA will probably snap him up, attach him to a big piece of talent. He'll go. Ryan and Blake, regardless of this, they're going to weather their shots. I mean, depending on how devastating this suit is, they're both going to be fine.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, we've seen that before. I
It's
think
the
it
food
was,
chain
I think when people are comparing this to Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, it's a different scenario because
completely.
Johnny Depp was already tarnished before the lawsuit. And of course, that didn't help. Do you think he's going to go to court?
Well, the New York Times one is definitely going to court. And it sounds like, based on Baldoni's lawyer's claims on Fox News, they're suing regardless. If Reynolds and Lively are smart, they'll settle because they're not going to want this evidence to come forward. And also, I believe that there is speculation that Ryan scabbed. So that's a big deal, and that could get him kicked out of the guild. So that's really messy, and I wouldn't want that coming out in litigation if I'm them.
No. You have to explain what scabbed means because I think people don't know what that is.
Yes. So scabbing is when the writers are striking. If you're not in the WGA, which is the Writers Guild of America, and you render writing services while they're all striking and saying, we're not writing, we're not doing anything, you were like, oh, all right, all right. That's called scabbing. And it's been alleged that he scabbed on this film based on the timelines and Blake's own sound bites. If he did, that's actually like a really big deal.
Wow. Okay, that's
Yeah.
going to be interesting. So what
And
kind?
that could come out in the filings.
Well, we'll see. We have to read 180 pages today.
Right. I think
So,
a lot of people are going to be subpoenaed too.
so yeah. Wow. Okay. So, at the end here, I just wanted to ask you what kind of reactions you got when you published your experience, because a lot of people came after me and said, "Why did you wait so long?" So I'm guessing, why did you wait? You waited 20 years, even longer than me. So,
I didn't even wait. It just was pertinent and at the top of my head in the moment. Everyone's like, people said that. Why did you sit on this for 20 years? What was I going to tattle on her when she was on Gossip Girl? Like, who cares? I didn't
yeah.
even care. This was an in the moment perspective based on my experience and my experience. So that was why I just kind of made that video. I did not expect it to go viral. I do have all this experience, so it is a 360 perspective. I'm not just going, I don't like her. So that was that. But yeah, I did get that. Why did you wait? And people can change. And yes, you're absolutely right. People can change. I've changed.
Yeah.
But then
I
I
know.
saw your interview and I was like, oh, this is a pattern. Actually, maybe you're a little bit to blame here
Yeah.
because if I didn't see your video, I would have just said, yes, she was a terrible 17-year-old. But like now when I see this, and then also having been in the industry, I have a myriad of friends who've worked with her. All of them say the same thing. She punches down.
I've had so many people contact me from even close to the family to people who work with her and makeup artists. There so many of these stories are so similar and it's really sad. And
But it's a pattern. And
yeah,
that's where I felt like comfortable kind of giving my hot take, where it's an established pattern at this point. I had two former bosses reach out who didn't want to obviously go on the record, and they were like, yup, that happened on this production. And I was like, then there we go.
it's crazy to me. I just don't get it. Why don't you own up to your mistakes a little bit and you can learn from it and move on? And
Well,
because,
I have a question for you as well. Has
yeah,
anyone reached out to you with negative things about Baldoni?
no. And that's something that I've thought about that a lot. I'm like, when something like this happens, usually other people will come forward. It's like, okay, oh, that happened to me too. That happened to me as well, and I've never heard anyone say anything bad about it. The only thing I've heard is that he's a bit eccentric. But I mean,
Yes, I heard he's weird.
yeah,
That's it.
but I've never heard anyone say anything bad about him. And I've watched a lot of the interviews that he's done. He's very respectful and he really lives for his work. So yeah, I think that's a red flag for me as well, that no one has come forward. And I don't think there's a lot of people who has come forward to support Blake Lively. And I think that's also like, why aren't more people supporting her if,
And we're both people who talk to people who, whether they want to go on the record or not, we're still getting the gossip.
yeah,
And I'm like, no one, all they said is he's quirky. And you, like you said, he really believes in his projects. All I've heard about her is she punches down. And I'm like, I'm sorry. At this point, I actually do think I have a full coloration. Now, is the court of law going to be the court of law? You know how American law is, it's
yeah.
unpredictable. But based on our experiences, I think we do have the accurate read here.
Yeah. No, I've been saying here on my channel that I want to keep an open mind, and I do. But at this point, it is getting a
As
little
women, we have
challenging.
to.
Yeah, yeah, we do. Anyways, Jamie, it was so nice to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming on here on my show and being open about your story. And I think like all the feedback that I was getting after I published my interview was that a lot of women reached out to me and said, oh my God, I recognize that situation. Something similar happened to me. I was bullied. My kid's been bullied, keeping that conversation going. I think it's so important. And I think now you're also being a part of that, which is amazing.
Well, thank you so much. And I just wish you continued success.
You too. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, let me stop.